Hola, buenas tardes. Egunon arratsaldeon. Hallo, guten Tag. Bienvenidos a esta sesión de webinar que hemos organizado dentro del Etorkizun Araikiz, dentro del ciclo de conferencias del think tank que tienen como finalidad mirar hacia Europa, mirar hacia cuáles son los retos estratégicos que tenemos en el conjunto de la Unión Europea y también en nuestro territorio. Y para hablar de ello voy a dar la palabra en primer lugar al diputado de Medio Ambiente, José Ignacio Asensio, que nos dará la bienvenida y hará la apertura. José Ignacio, nahi duzuna.
Vale, eskerrik asko Monika, arratsaldeon guztioi eta barkamenak eskatu berandu xamarra hasi garelako, baina nik azkar eta segidan Christiane Eggerri emango diot hitza. Hasteko bakarrik esan Etorkizun Araikiz programaren barruan egiten dugula horrelako saio bat, berriro, eta gaur bereziki gazteleraz eta ingelesez egingo dugu saioa. Orduan, gaztelera pasako naiz. Decía que, buenas tardes a todos, perdonad porque hemos tenido alguna dificultad para empezar en hora, pero ya estamos en ello. Como decía Mónica, hoy contamos con Christiane Egger para que nos dé una sesión magistral que luego podremos debatir brevemente. Por mi parte, dar las gracias, ¿no?, por su presencia. Toda la sesión de hoy la hacemos dentro del programa Etorkizun Araikiz, que, como sabéis, significa que, desde Guipúzcoa, desde la Diputación Foral de Guipúzcoa, estamos ideando, cómo tiene que ser ese futuro y qué pasos tenemos que dar para tener un futuro mucho más sostenible y, para que nuestra ciudadanía tenga ese futuro que se merece. Hoy vamos a hablar de la transición energética, hablaremos desde el punto de vista de los parámetros que nos mueven desde Europa, conoceremos de primera mano, a través de Christine, conoceremos por dónde van las políticas más vanguardistas, los pasos más aventajados, pero es verdad que desde Guipúzcoa también podemos aportar los pasos que estamos dando y luego los daremos a conocer. Yo no voy a entretenerme mucho más, solamente hacer un comentario sobre Christine, para los que no la conozcáis a estas alturas. Christine es experta en eficiencia energética en edificios, calefacción solar y biomasa, y también es la promoción de producción y uso sostenible de la energía. Vicepresidenta de FEDARENE, que es la Federación Europea de Agencias y Regiones para la Energía y el Medio Ambiente, y subdirectora de la Agencia Energética de Alta Austria. Y directora de, esto no sé si lo voy a pronunciar bien, Eco-Energy Cluster, una red de más de 160 empresas activas en energías renovables y eficiencia energética. Yo, sin más, le voy a dar la palabra a ella y luego tendremos ocasión de charlar. Christine, cuando quieras.
Thank you very much, and good evening. It's a pleasure for me to join this important event and to contribute to the debate about building the future. I think this is a very, very good idea that you decide to use these challenging times, not only to think about how to tackle the present, which keeps us all quite busy, but also to think how to make a better future, to make a green recovery. And the energy transition is one of the options that could help us make a green recovery, so meaning an economic recovery, but also recovery creating a better life, a better quality of life, a better economy for our citizens, for our businesses, and for our communities. I was already introduced, thank you very much. So on my first slide, you see one of the more touristic parts of our region. Unfortunately, this is not where my office is, but this is one of the more scenic regions in the Alps. But even here in the city this morning, there was snow and everything was white until in the late afternoon. So winter is coming. So what will I do during this presentation? I will speak about what is going on in Europe, and then I will take the example of our own region to show what we have done, and maybe there is some inspiration, and I look forward to the discussion and to the exchange we're going to have afterwards. Before that, I wanted to show you a picture taken from my holiday in 2012. I went back to my photo collection. So we stayed in San Sebastian in this very beautiful hotel up at the Monte Geldo. And these were two pictures I took. We had dinner in the Concha, and it's a pity I cannot be here with you today, but better times will come, and then I will hopefully be able to take more beautiful pictures of the wonderful Basque Country, which I've visited often in the past and hopefully also in the future. Now, a few words about my own region. So on the map, you can see where this is in the northern part of Austria. The capital is called Linz, so we are 1.5 million, so roughly double of the province of Gipuzkoa. So for orders of magnitude is sometimes quite helpful to keep that in mind. We are a very industrial region, the industrial heart of Austria. But also there's a very rural areas, and more than half of the population live in smaller municipalities. My own organization, the Regional Energy Agency of Upper Austria, is an organization dedicated to the energy transition and to climate protection, energy efficiency, renewables, energy innovation. We provide a range of services. We advise, we inform, we run funding programs, we do networking, we provide training, and we do research. I will come back later to some of our activities, but I would like to start with, what is the energy transition? Maybe this is not such an obvious word, yet everywhere it's quite simple. The energy transition means phasing out, getting rid of, terminating fossil fuels. So oil, gas, and coal. And we do this through a combination of energy efficiency and renewable energy sources. And so this is very clear. Energy efficiency and renewables to drive out and to terminate fossil fuels. Since last year, we have a Europe-wide goal, the goal of climate neutrality by 2050. I will come back a little bit later what I mean with climate neutrality. I will now have a few slides about the situation in Europe. So in overall terms, key principles that we follow is we prioritize energy efficiency and renewables, while at the same time making sure that we have a secure and affordable energy supply. And in that context, interconnection and digitalization of energy markets plays a key role, is one of the key enablers. You may have followed the discussion about greenhouse gas emissions, but there's one thing that is important to keep in mind when we speak about decarbonization. So this means getting carbon out of the system, and that is 75% of all greenhouse gas emissions are related to energy. So that is something very important to keep in mind when we speak about climate neutrality and about the different fields we have to act in. But the most important field with 75% is the energy sector. Today, not quite 70% of our energy consumption come from renewable energy sources, so we have quite a long way to go. I was just saying, most of our greenhouse gas emissions, CO2 and other greenhouse gases, come from the energy sector. But when we want to achieve climate neutrality, we will have to decrease, as you can see, the greenhouse gas emissions in all sectors. So on the top, you have the agriculture. So this is one of the key other, but it's a very relatively small part. And then we have residential, tertiary, transport, industry, and the whole electricity market. And over the years, as you can see, until 2050, which is only 30 years, think if you are not very young, 30 years back, we're talking about 1990. So this is the same time span. Of course, 30 years is a long time, but it's also not forever. And clearly there will be some areas where we will not manage to totally decarbonize, and that's why we will have a certain small part of carbon sequestration, mostly in forestry. But this is a relatively small part, and let's keep in mind the biggest sector to tackle is energy. Clearly, a transformation like the one is described here on my slide is a very, very major change. So this transformation will affect the lives of all citizens, all public bodies, and all businesses. We have to keep this in mind. This is not a minor technical measure somewhere done by some company or by some public infrastructure. This is a major transformation. So this is important to keep in mind when we think how to do this. I have here now a few more numbers to help you organize your thoughts. So as I said, these are our total greenhouse gas emissions. So the green is the agriculture, and a little bit is waste. The big blue part is energy industry. So that's electricity generation, that's gas transformation. Then the red part is transport, basically. The yellow part is transport, I'm sorry. The red is all kinds of fuel use, oil, gas, and coal in the different sectors. And then we have industrial processes. So it is clear, this transformation, you can see roughly a third, a third, a third. So this is a very wide-ranging transformation. Now, if we look at the energy production today across the EU countries, you can see a third is from nuclear, a third is from renewables, and then the third is from solid fuels, natural gas, and oil. So this is the picture as we had. Speaking about renewable, clearly this picture differs significantly between EU countries. I have a slide in a moment that shows how the electricity is generated. Before that, I show you here over the time how renewable energy sources have increased. What do I mean by renewable energy sources? I mean wind energy, PV, photovoltaic energy, I mean hydro energy, and I mean energy from biogene materials, so wood energy, biogas. So these are the most important renewable energy sources. And you can see across different sectors, so renewables have increased quite well in the overall, but clearly in the transport, we have not achieved so much. In heating and cooling, and the best progress has been made in electricity generation. Now, as I said, the picture is quite different across member states. And here on this slide, you can see these roughly 20%. So it depends whether you, sometimes it's 30 if you take net, or this is gross, but it's the order of magnitude that counts here. And you can see here, there is countries like the Nordic countries, Sweden, Austria with 30, 40, 50, and then going down to the Netherlands and Spain, we find here in the middle. So what does this little black bar mean? 10 years ago in 2010, the EU countries together set targets for the renewable energy production for 2020. And this is this percentage, as you can see here. And you can see here some countries managed to achieve or even overachieve the target, and some countries are quite far away from these targets, and some countries are more or less on the line. Of course, some countries gave themselves more ambitious targets, and they did not start from the same level. So obviously in those countries that have a very long tradition already in using renewables, they started with higher levels, or also the resources are not equally distributed across the countries. Some countries have a bigger hydropower resource where you have a lot of mountains. Some countries have a very big wind resource. My own country, for example, has a very good bioenergy resource. So it depends on the countries, it depends on the potential, but of course it also depends on the policy, whether good policies were in place that supported the development or whether these policies were not so good yet. Obviously, what we cannot produce ourselves, we have to import. And we import, as the European Union, we import obviously fossil fuels from different parts of the world. And here is just where we import oil from. And you see, these are countries like Russia, Iraq, Saudi Arabia. So countries that are not all very democratic, not all very stable. If you look further down the line, countries like Libya, countries like Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan. So the geopolitical situation across our planet differs significantly, and it's quite good to be aware where are these resources are coming from, and also on the political impact such imports have. And I have only two more of these pictures. So this picture, I'm sorry, it's a little bit small, but this describes how the electricity is produced in our different EU countries. And you can see the black bar, dark blue bar, is from electricity production from fossil fuels. So Cyprus, nearly all the electricity production is from fossil fuels, whereas Sweden practically has no electricity production from fossil fuels. And then this goes along the line. Spain is quite relatively similar to the EU average. And my own country has a very big hydro resource. That's why the blue bar is quite big. And so we don't need as much fossil fuels for electricity production. So just another glimpse to understand a little bit this complex picture. All this energy is consumed somewhere. It's consumed in our cars, it's consumed in our industry, and it's consumed in our buildings. And a lot of focus has been put, very well so, on the energy consumption in buildings and the fact that we need to renovate old buildings a lot faster and a lot better. And my last graph shows you how old are the buildings across the EU. So some countries have a very old building stock, and some countries have a much newer building stock, clearly in different eras, in different decades. The quality of the buildings was quite different. So for example, if I take my own countries, we have lots of excellent buildings from the previous century, so from the 1900s. Usually the worst performing buildings in my countries are the buildings from the 70s. So this was a period when we paid very little attention to good building quality. So these buildings are usually the most inefficient ones and the worst performing buildings. In the 80s, it started to get a little bit better, but the really good and high efficiency buildings are only those that we built in the last 10 years. Now, I tried to show you a little bit the vast challenge of this transformation, and it is obviously something that is very big and very, very complex. So what can we do together to give ourselves the courage to tackle such a big task? And the EU leaders came up with something which I think is a very encouraging and inspiring idea, and it's of course a lot more than idea. It's a big policy and financing package. It's the so-called EU Green Deal. And they did something what I think what it should be, and it was actually before COVID, they invented this concept, and they said, the Green Deal is not an environmental policy. It's our jobs and growth strategy. And for someone like me who has worked in this field since the early 90s and who has sometimes been sad to be relegated to a very minor policy field. In the 90s, when you said energy efficiency and renewables, the general interest was not so high. And also only in the last 10 years, it became clearer and clearer how important this is. But now this puts this transformation at the very center of our economic and growth strategy. And when this Green Deal was announced, we didn't know that COVID would come. And actually, we would need a job and growth strategy a lot more than we did a year before. So this Green Deal has many different policies and principles. I will not go into in detail now, but basically, it is about our climate adaptation. It's about changing our energy landscape. It's about changing our industry. It's about changing our buildings. Then we have the non-energy related aspect here on the right-hand side, the toxic-free, the reserving, the nature preservation, everything that concerns the agriculture, and of course also an energy topic, in my opinion, the mobility. And there are two blue underlying principles. Financing, clearly this will require a lot of money, and we have to think where this is going to come from. And the second principle is the principle of the just transition, so that we don't say only the rich people and the others, we don't care what happens to them, but leaving no one behind, not one country, and ideally also none of the people in our populations. Now, looking at this major transformation, you may ask yourself, what can a province, or in my case, a region with maybe a million people, what can we do to also put the energy transition as our new jobs and growth strategy? So what can we do? And I think for me, the important question is, how can we turn this challenge into an opportunity? Because only if we see it as an opportunity, we will get everyone on board. And I think we can turn it into an opportunity if we have a clear picture on why we are doing this. So the why. And the why is because the energy transition creates jobs and local investment. It helps us as economies and our companies to be more competitive. It helps us to have a modern infrastructure, and it allows us to empower and involve our citizens. Oh, and yes, it's also for climate protection. But I think we need to talk about the whole picture. And we may like this or not, but there are a lot more people interested in job creation and modern infrastructure than there are in climate protection. So this, for me, all these reasons are good, but we should keep in mind that the other reasons also exist, and that all this, only when people understand this, then we can achieve the climate neutrality we are aiming for. I would now like to share a few thoughts about what we have been doing in my region in the last 10, 15 years to advance on this transformation. So as I said, 1.5 million people, very industrial region. So we said we want competitiveness and quality of life. I saw you had the bienestar, the well-being. as one of your slogans. So I think quality of life is quite similar to this one, through the energy transition and not despite of. We know that we need to tackle buildings, manufacturing, and transport. We want to be market leader in a range of energy products and services. And for that, we need innovation, investment, and involvement of our public bodies, our citizens, and our businesses. Now, where are we? So we have already made very good progress in progress in the renewable energy, market development. As you can see, 70% of our electricity is from renewable, nearly 60% of our space heating, and about a third of our total primary energy. And what is maybe surprising, half of this is from clean bioenergy. So mostly this is wood residues. A third is from hydro, and about 20% is from other renewables. We don't have such a good wind resource, and it's also a very crowded region. And we do have a very ambitious solar PV program, and we have a very good market, but also our solar potential is not as big as in other parts of Europe. We managed in the last 10 years to decrease greenhouse gas emissions from buildings by more than 30%. And what is important, and I think that's a key message, more or less exactly of these 30%, the 50%, half of this came from energy efficiency. So by renovating buildings and building better new buildings, and the other half came from phasing out fossil fuels in the building sector, so mostly for heating in our context. I will keep on talking the fact that the energy transition is a lot more than environment and climate protection. So here in our small region, every year the sustainable energy investments is 2.3 billion every year. So in your province, about half the population, it could be more than 1 billion every year. So that would make it probably quite a significant economic sector. And about a third is in buildings, a third is in industry, and 40% is in renewable energy sources. And that is, I think, a very, very encouraging number for all those people who sometimes think we cannot keep our promise that we are a job engine and an investment engine. And I'm very happy to say that this year, difficult it has been, but the investments in the energy transition in my country were very well, and a lot of investment, especially in the domestic side, has been made. How are we doing this? We're using a policy approach that I call the carrots, the sticks, and the tambourines. So it's maybe not so difficult to guess. What are the carrots? The carrots are the financial incentives, so money we give in the form of different programs. The sticks are the regulatory instruments. So Austria is a federal country, so we as a region can pass laws on a number of things, including energy efficiency in buildings. And the third, as important pillar, the tambourine or the megaphone, is the information, the awareness raising, the training, everything that changes people's mindsets. So what you don't even know, you will never do. What you don't understand, what you don't have the skills for, is not going to happen. So these are the three pillars of our regional energy policies. What is quite important is the transformation across the value chain. It's not very helpful if you have a very efficient, let's say, window. But this window requires different skills in sales, different knowledge among the construction companies. If these skills are not there, these windows will probably not be used and implemented in the proper way. Or if you have a very modern heat pump or a building control, you can take any energy efficiency or renewable energy technology. The knowledge and the innovation has to happen across the value chain, and also from the users, by involving the users in the innovation. Also the manufacturing has to change. So this is quite something that is very important to me and important in the transformation. I already said the energy transition is a business, so you need businesses, and I also manage a network of companies now called Clean Tech Cluster, which had 250 companies in energy and environment, and we help these companies from the public sector to become more competitive, because if the companies grow, also our market for energy efficiency and renewables grows. So this is the deal. We help them and they help us, and they deliver jobs and innovation. And as I said earlier, many of the companies active in the energy transition in my region have very full books. So they are very busy because lots of people continue to invest in the energy transition. Now, a few words about the tambourine. So the information, the awareness raising, the training. This is something a province can do, because if you have 750,000 people, this is not 50 million. So you can communicating with the population, communicating with the professionals in a specific sector, the construction companies, the installers, the mayors. This is not vast numbers of people. So this is something where the local and the provincial level is its strongest. It can help people make good decisions, it can create the awareness, and it can guide investment decisions. Obviously, the public sector owns public buildings, so we need to take better care of our public buildings. The public sector needs to lead by example. So it's not so easy to explain to our citizens why they should renovate their buildings if our own public buildings are not well renovated and don't use renewable energy sources for heating and cooling. It will be quite hard to explain this. On my slide, there are a range of policies we use for our own public buildings, and we have been very successful in the last year to keep this promise of leading by examples. We also need to make sure, and again here also the provincial local level has a role to play in innovative financing solutions. There are nowadays, it's not the only solution if there's an investment needed that the person who owns the building invests themselves. There are innovative models such as energy performance contracting. There are loads of other models, but all these models have the challenge they need help in getting started. So it's a chicken and egg problem. Often they are complex, so the companies will not willingly offer them and the consumers will not know them. So typically energy performance contracting is a solution for the public and the business sector. It's not such a good solution for the private sector. And we have been developing these markets via a so-called facilitation service, so that makes sure these innovative financing instruments arrives on the market. And I have just 3 examples to give you a flavor of such energy performance contracting project, EPC project, where a specialized company, an ESCO, invests in an energy efficiency measure, and the investment is repaid through the energy savings. And here you have 3 examples. One is a street lighting. Public lighting is nowadays should be converted to LED. And for those municipalities who don't have the money or who don't want to spend the money on it, they can use this instrument. And you can create beautiful before and after pictures in terms of energy consumption and of energy cost. And you can see on the lowest level, in the first case, half of the investment was financed through the savings. In the second two examples, a gas station and a bread factory, all the energy efficiency investment was financed through these innovative financing instruments. Also, heating oil is something in my country is quite important. So we have decided it's time to go. Even though only 17% of our buildings are heated with heating oil, this heating oil, because it has so much more CO2, is responsible for nearly half of our CO2 emissions. So we have a whole portfolio of instruments to make sure that we will terminate oil heating in the next years. We have a legal ban. Next year, if your old boiler breaks, you are not allowed to replace it. We have strict emission standards. We have advice, we have subsidies, and we have information and awareness campaign. Similarly, we support the industry, because also the industry needs to make this transition. And again, we have this mix of the carrots, the sticks, and the tambourines. We give subsidies together with the national government. We have some legal measures. We have some R&D programs, because not all the solutions for industry are there yet. And again, we have a range of instruments to show that this transformation is possible. And actually, this transformation makes the company more competitive than it was before because of this energy transition. And the last example I would like to show you is on renewable energy communities. This is a new instrument coming from the EU level, the European Renewable Energy Directive. And this is an instrument that will allow people in the future, in the context of such communities, to share renewable electricity within their community and sell it outside without the involvement of an electricity company. So move towards prosumer models. In the past, there were a number of legal limitations to this, but now this new legislation will make this possible. In most countries, the legal framework is emerging, and I understand that also in Spain, a lot of the building blocks for these new renewable energy communities are already here. More are coming, and I think this is a very exciting opportunity on the local level to promote these new renewable communities, to be pioneers, and to show the people the value of taking their energy future into their own hands. And then they understand also that this is not so only a cost and an infrastructure measure that has nothing to do with them. So near the end, some thoughts on the local action. So within a public administration, you need data and you need skills. You need a vision and an action plan. Energy ambassadors are very helpful to bring out the message. It's important to have product neutral information support for citizens, SMEs, and municipalities. The public buildings should lead by examples, and we have cool topics now that excite people, such as energy communities and e-mobility, because the energy transition is about local jobs, it's about competitiveness, it's about modern infrastructure, and it's about climate protection. And if you're interested in learning more, we organize a very large international conference every year. Next year, it will be a hybrid event, so you will be able to follow online if you are interested in learning more on what we have done. With that, I thank you very much for your attention, and I look forward to our discussion.
Muchas gracias, Christiane. Ha sido un placer escuchar tu tu presentación.
I cannot hear.
Es que, si no, un micrófono de mano, Leire, que me den, porque creo que esto no está funcionando bien.
Yeah, now, yes.
¿Yes? Sí. Ok.
Sorry,
¿Sí?
it was too abrupt.
¿Me oyes bien? ¿Sí?
Se acopla, no sé.
Se acopla. Vale. Decía Christiane que ha sido un placer escuchar tu presentación porque yo creo que has hecho un reflejo claro, ¿no?, de todos los pasos que tenemos que tocar y cómo tenemos que trabajar con todos los sectores, con toda la ciudadanía, con el mundo de la educación, de las universidades, un poco cómo hay que trabajar con todos para hacer ese cambio sistémico que necesitamos para transformar la sociedad, porque tú lo decías muy bien, necesitamos una transformación de la sociedad en su conjunto porque todos los sectores se traducen en su reflejo en los consumos de los sectores energéticos. Con lo cual no podemos estar más de acuerdo en que es necesario acelerar esa transición. Pero hay una cuestión que te quería trasladar. Varias veces has hablado en tu presentación de la importancia de hacer partícipe a la ciudadanía, de ese empoderamiento de la ciudadanía, como hablan las directivas europeas. Pero sí nos gustaría que si pudieses profundizar un poco más en qué herramientas habéis empleado, cómo habéis conseguido acercar esa política de transición energética más al ciudadano, porque a las industrias o a los sectores empresariales pues incides en ellos con las herramientas normativas, las herramientas fiscales, pero ¿cuál ha sido la palanca de cambio? ¿Cómo conseguís transformar y acercar esa transición tan necesaria al ciudadano? Gracias.
Thank you very much. This is a very important question because without the citizens, this is not going to happen. The cities will vote, and so we need them, and we want them on board. So one key activity that we have is we provide product-independent energy advice to homeowners. So if you decided to move here to my region and you buy a house that maybe needs renovation, but you're not so sure what to do first, should you buy new windows or replace the heating system, and are there funding programs, you can call us. And we send for free, paid by the regional government, an energy advisor. And this energy advisor will guide you through the process and help you make good decisions that are good for the environment and good for yourself. So this is a building block. We do more than 10,000 face-to-face energy advice sessions. So we are just ending 3 weeks of lockdown. And starting on Monday, my energy advisors will go out again and help people in their investment decisions. Clearly, the best advice service is only effective if people know about it. So we do a lot of information and awareness training, working with media, going on local trade shows, going in schools. And a very important channel towards the general public are also the municipalities, the communities. Because as I said, a lot of people in my region live in rural areas. And in rural areas, you have a much stronger connection between the local communities than you may have in the big cities. So I give you an example from a big campaign we have been running in the last year. It's called Bye Bye Oil. So it's to drive out heating oil. And we have partnered with municipalities on this issue. So we give municipalities a small financial incentive. They will identify and contact people who heat with oil, encourage them to use the advice service. We have equipped the municipalities with information material where they can print the name of their municipality is already printed on them. So the municipalities are the ones that approach the citizens. And we talk about the environment, we talk about the energy cost, but we talk a lot also about that this is then a modern building. This is a building that offers a lot more convenience and comfort, and that people have a secure future in their buildings if they do this now, so they will have a good quality building. So we work through the energy advice, we work through the municipalities, we work through the media, and we also work, for example, strongly with the local banks. Because many people, when they are thinking of doing a home investment, they go to the bank to find out whether they can get a loan or not. And the banks themselves, they don't want to spend so much time to speak on energy because they want to spend their time in selling a loan. But by working with them, by giving them materials, by inviting them to encourage people to use our information services, they can create extra benefit and extra value for their clients, and it's also helpful for us. So there are a lot of strategic partnerships with people who are in daily contact with citizens, and we try to offer these strategic partners a value why they should support us. And if this is a true partnership, they help us, and this helps us again getting access to the citizens. In addition to that, of course, we have website information and social media and all the obvious communication channels that you nowadays have. So if someone is looking for information in the internet, they will find us very quickly. But it's also about activating citizens that may not be aware of that these services exist and that are not aware of the options that they have. That is why I put on my last slide this product independent energy information. We believe it's a key to this transformation.
Gracias, Christiane. José Ignacio, haciendo un poco y escuchando un poco a lo que nos decía Christiane, de qué herramientas, ¿no?, están impulsando a nivel de Austria, le da mucha importancia a la información, a la sensibilización. A nivel de Guipúzcoa, ¿cómo se viene trabajando en esta materia en los últimos años? ¿Cómo se viene haciendo?
Sí, yo creo que Cristina ha hecho bastantes... bueno, la verdad es que ha sido una exposición formidable, y la verdad es que formidable en todos los sentidos, por lo buena que ha sido y también por la amplitud de la exposición, y yo creo que has dejado pocas cosas sin tocar, ¿no? Pero centrándome en la pregunta, creo que sirve muy bien lo que decía ella del palo y la zanahoria y la pandereta, ¿no? Y quizás esta parte sea la parte de la pandereta, ¿no?, la de la formación, la información y el compartir con la ciudadanía primero los conocimientos y un conocimiento práctico para que ellos puedan tomar decisiones. Tú lo has tocado todo, ¿no? Y la verdad es que en Guipúzcoa, en ese sentido, bueno, lanzamos ya hace unos años el programa Guipúzcoa Argitu, que se ha ido elaborando y se ha ido complementando continuamente. Son talleres que se hacen, bueno, hasta ahora se hacían presencialmente, ahora no nos queda más remedio que hacerlo online, pero donde articulábamos eso que tú decías, ¿no?, que el ciudadano tenga conocimiento, que sepa si está contratando adecuadamente o no la energía, etcétera, etcétera, ¿no? Llevamos hechos muchísimos talleres y ha pasado muchísimos ciudadanos, ¿no? A veces esa relación, y tú lo comentabas, ¿no?, en una población de 720.000 habitantes que tiene Guipúzcoa, hombre, llegar a todos va a ser difícil, pero es verdad que llevamos ya 4 años pues haciendo talleres y son prácticamente, bueno, servicio individualizado, ¿no?, que es un poco lo último que estaba diciendo Christine. Bueno, Guipúzcoa Argitu es uno de los grandes programas que van a perdurar en el tiempo, y la verdad es que ha pasado muchísima gente por esos talleres, donde tienen conocimiento exhaustivo de cómo acceder a la energía renovable, si puede haber autoconsumo o no, y cómo pueden hacerse, bueno, merecedores de esos servicios, la generación distribuida, Al mismo tiempo, bueno, pues oye, cómo mejorar la eficiencia, y es verdad. Nosotros también como territorio hemos mejorado mucho la eficiencia energética si comparamos la última década, pero es verdad que tenemos un reto por delante, que es las energías renovables, ¿no? Cómo aplicar las energías renovables y sobre todo a la ciudadanía. Comentabas el poco o mucho sol que tenéis en Austria. Hombre, pues Guipúzcoa igual algo más tenemos, pero es verdad que la implantación de energía solar, por ejemplo, en el territorio y en el hogar es escasa. Y ahí vamos a hacer un especial hincapié y tenemos que hacer un impulso formidable. Y lo mismo pasa con la industria, ¿no? Es verdad que para determinadas actividades va a ser difícil hacer una transformación del 100%, pero es verdad que tú lo explicabas perfectamente cómo hay que ir dando pasos en el mix energético, ¿no? Entre lo óptimo y la nada, pues hombre, pues hay distintas soluciones y tenemos que dar pasos ahí, ¿no? En ese ámbito de mejora en el mix energético, implementando cada vez más la energía renovable y seguramente será más fácil. Lo digo entre comillas todo, en el hogar, que seguramente la automoción, pero tendremos que ir dando pasos y todo eso se ha visto en Austria, ¿no? Como la movilidad, pues seguramente tiene menos implantación, pero en otros ámbitos tenéis una implantación muchísimo mayor. Bueno, me estoy enrollando demasiado, pero es verdad que hay que compaginar todas estas cosas, ¿no? Es decir, hay que compaginar la información, la formación, evidentemente hay que dar ese servicio individualizado a la ciudadanía, que vosotros lo tenéis a través de expertos independientes, nosotros a través de las agencias comarcales hemos hecho unos planes energéticos que yo creo que están dando resultados importantes. Es verdad que es un goteo, que no son espectaculares seguramente las transformaciones en un periodo corto, pero cuando se ve con perspectiva de una década, se ve la transformación que se está produciendo, ¿no? Y a veces no somos conscientes de ello, pero es verdad que tenemos retos importantes por delante. Y luego, evidentemente, todas las normativas son importantes y en este caso la Diputación en estos momentos está inmerso en el desarrollo del decreto de sostenibilidad energética que va a afectar al territorio y sobre todo a las administraciones públicas, Diputación y Ayuntamientos, y en ese sentido en los próximos meses, seguramente en mayo, tendremos aprobado toda una planificación que esperemos que dé unos frutos importantes. Perdón por la extensión, ¿eh?
Nada, gracias, José Ignacio. Como veo que nos quedan 5 o 10 minutos, que es lo que hemos tardado en empezar, sí me gustaría lanzaros una última pregunta a los dos. En primer lugar a Christiane, pero va a ser la misma pregunta que luego me gustaría que respondieses, José Ignacio. Retomo la última transparencia que ha hecho Christiane y que me da a entender que, pese al desarrollo que ya tiene Austria en los últimos años en toda la temática de la energía renovable, veo que uno de los aspectos que estáis trabajando o que prevéis trabajar a futuro y dentro de, entiendo que de ese marco del Green Deal, es el tema de las comunidades eficientes energéticamente, comunidades solares, en el caso como las citaba el diputado de Medio Ambiente. Creo que los dos, tanto Austria como Guipúzcoa, se ha detectado claramente que el trabajar en esa producción de energía eléctrica basada en el consumo, en el autoconsumo, en la cercanía, puede ser desde luego un nuevo nicho de mercado, un nuevo nicho de creación de riqueza y de creación de empleo, ¿no? Como bien lo señalaba Christiane. Me gustaría saber la perspectiva de Austria en cuanto al desarrollo de estas comunidades energéticas y un poco su hoja de ruta, y lo mismo la apuesta de Guipúzcoa en el mismo sentido.
Okay, these renewable energy communities, we see it as the next big step in the energy transition because it will allow a new local collaboration. So in the past, if I have a house and on this house I have a solar PV installation, and during the day maybe I'm not at home, so my renewable electricity that my PV panel produces goes back into the grid, so because I don't use it because I'm not at home. And in my country, the price you will get for this is very small. But at the moment, I cannot sell it to my neighbor who maybe is at home and has no PV system, because we would need an electricity company to do so. That is the current situation. Now, with this new renewable energy community, people in a certain geographic proximity can form such a renewable energy community, and they can jointly produce and consume renewable electricity. So there may be people with a PV on their house, there may be people with not a PV, there will be municipal buildings with or without PV, there will be small companies without PV, maybe they can also attach a biogas plant to the system. They can make maybe a cogeneration from wood energy, and together they can form a so-called renewable energy community. And we believe that this will create a new dynamic on the local level, because people in the municipalities will go out and start, and we see a lot of interest from many municipalities because it gives them an opportunity to involve their citizens. And the citizens are very, very interested in making sure that their precious renewable electricity is consumed locally. So many people are very unhappy, and it's not so much the economic side, but they are unhappy to see their beautiful solar electricity go somewhere in the grid and disappear. So we've heard this many times. Nowadays, some people put in a solar storage, but still there will be many periods when the storage is not so large. So there will be many periods when the locally produced renewable electricity cannot be used locally. And with these new communities, we can create a better match of a wider concept of self-consumption. So maybe there is a school with a PV plant and a restaurant next door to it and 5 houses. Now, in the school, during the weekend, the PV plant produces electricity, but the school is empty. But next door, the restaurant and the family homes, they will be at home during the weekends, maybe. And their electricity consumption is much higher than during the week because everyone is at home. So in this community, they can consume the electricity produced by the PV plant on the school. During the day, when the people who have PV plants are not at home, maybe the municipality, where the office is running at full speed, can use this electricity. So we can create new ecosystems of joint self-consumption. And I think this is a very exciting and dynamic possibility. It's quite important what the specific legal requirements will be. I understood from a Spanish colleague that in Spain, most of the regulatory framework is already there. So it's worthwhile to make sure that you understand fully what it foresees, and then maybe to plan a strategy like what we have been doing now, so to empower as many municipalities and citizens and local businesses to form such renewable energy communities, because then they can take ownership of their energy transition locally, and that will not only be good for the energy transition, but it will be also very, very good for the spirit of collaboration within a community. Thank you.
Gracias, Christiane. José Ignacio, la misma reflexión.
Sí, yo creo que lo ha dicho todo ella, ¿no? Y lo ha explicado perfectamente. Yo creo que es el gran reto, y es verdad que, bueno, pues tu compañero español te ha explicado bastante bien las modificaciones legales que se han producido, sobre todo en los 2 últimos años, ¿no? Es lo que yo comentaba antes muy brevemente, lo que es el autoconsumo y la generación distribuida, y que tiene que ser la gran transformación del consumo de energético renovable en el hogar, ¿no? Básicamente. Y ahí la verdad, y con algo que has dicho tú, quizás nosotros no tengamos todavía esa implantación, no la tenemos evidentemente, esa implantación y esa concienciación que tenéis vosotros, y de eso tenemos que aprender, ¿no? Y tenemos que aprender, pero nos tenemos que desarrollar rápidamente, tenemos que dar saltos de gigante en ese sentido. Y tú lo explicabas perfectamente, ¿no? Es la labor de la administración local, en este caso los municipios y la Diputación, lo que tocante a Guipúzcoa, y ahí desde la Diputación evidentemente estamos queriendo dar un impulso importante a este fenómeno, ¿no? La generación de cooperativas solares o comunitarias, en este sentido, va a ser fundamental, pero creo que en una primera parte es importante que estemos las administraciones públicas dando cobertura, hasta cierto punto, pero dando cobertura y seguridad de que esos modelos van a ser eficientes, van a ser con un grado de sostenibilidad no solamente energética, sino en el tiempo, y en ese sentido es fundamental que ahí nos impliquemos. Desde la Diputación estamos impulsando experiencias piloto en una primera parte y de forma de que eso pueda surtir efecto y donde todo el mundo tenga las garantías de que hay un soporte jurídico y legal potente, porque yo creo que en sí mismo el uso de energías renovables, el grado de eficacia que tiene en estos momentos y eficiencia y el coste de producir es equivalente a cualquier otra energía, con el plus, evidentemente, de que son sostenibles y que reducimos enormemente las emisiones, ¿no? Por tanto, yo creo que son todo ventajas. Creo que no hay más coste económico y ahí desde las administraciones locales tenemos que hacer una apuesta fuerte en combinación con la ciudadanía, pero que tiene que ser la ciudadanía, y tú lo decías en parte de tu exposición, se tiene que empoderar en este sentido, ¿no? Y nosotros tenemos que ser garantes de que los pasos que se den ahí sean firmes, sean constantes y que no haya un riesgo, por lo menos no legal o fiscal o de otro tipo, de forma de que esos modelos perduren. En Guipúzcoa somos especialmente sensibles a las necesidades de dar esa transformación energética. Tenemos un grado de dependencia enorme del exterior, generamos muy poquita energía y además tenemos que generar un desarrollo, la próxima década tenemos que desarrollarnos completamente en el desarrollo de energías renovables. Por tanto, el reto es enorme, pero al mismo tiempo es ilusionante y desde las administraciones públicas creo que estamos poniendo los cimientos necesarios, no solamente legales, sino el acompañamiento, la facilitación, la información, la formación y el dar garantías para que esos modelos sean exitosos y aceptados por la ciudadanía, por supuesto.
Muy bien. Gracias a los dos. Veo que son las 6:10 pasadas ya, pero bueno, como hemos empezado 10 minutos antes, si os parece, vamos a cerrar este webinar. A mí me gustaría destacar 3, 4 palabras, que creo que han sido las palabras claves que han aportado tanto Christiane como José Ignacio. Yo creo que hemos hablado de la transición energética como cambio de modelo y de un nuevo modelo económico sostenible. Hemos hablado de cambio sistémico, de la transformación de la sociedad y 2 factores fundamentales a destacar: empoderamiento de la ciudadanía y democratización de la energía. Gracias a los dos, gracias José Ignacio, Dankeschön Christiane, un placer haberte tenido con nosotros y muchas gracias a todos los que nos estáis siguiendo pues, a través de las diferentes redes. Gracias, eskerrik asko.
Thank you very much. Bye bye to
Bye bye.
Sebastian.
Bye bye.
It's been a